Okay, so greetings to everyone. I would like to welcome you on our Alumni Talks session, the series of Alumni Talks. And today's series is dedicated to the trade facilitation in Central Asia. But before presenting our speakers, I would like to briefly describe C5+1 Youth Council. So in 2016, with the US Embassy and the Kyrgyz Republic collaboration, the American University of Central Asia has created a dynamic C5+1 Youth Council that brings together Central Asian youth with diverse backgrounds, leadership skills, and mindsets for positive change. Since January 2021, C5+1 Youth Council has been administered by the American Councils for International Education in Kyrgyzstan. As I mentioned before, today's session is dedicated to the trade facilitation, and we have wonderful guests. One of them is C5+1 Youth Council alumni, Aikan Suranaeva. So Aikan is C5+1 Youth Council alumni. She was in Youth Council in 2018 till 2021. And currently she is an intern in GIZ Regional Project Trade Facilitation in Central Asia. During her membership in the C5+1 Youth Council, she was the project leader of the virtual debate tournament Network Cup 2020 and a part of the organizing committee of the Network Cup 2019, Quiz Nights in 2019, Water Security Symposium, and YC virtual sessions in 2020. And the second wonderful guest that we have today is Felicitas Siek. Felicitas is an international expert in the field of development policy. Her academic background is philosophy and economics and public policy. She has 11 years of working experience in human development cooperation, holding different positions in Deutsche Gesellschaft für Internationale Zusammenarbeit. I hope I pronounced it correctly. I'm really sorry if I didn't. And since November 2019, Felicitas is heading the GIZ Regional Project Trade Facilitation in Central Asia and lives in Bishkek. Moreover, she worked as a project manager in the Develop.D, delivered seminars on anti-corruption at Willy Brandt School of Public Policy in Germany, and worked as human rights observer in the Philippines. So greetings to our guest today. And I hope that your session will be really productive and our audience will gain new knowledge. So good luck.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul, and good afternoon to the audience.
I suppose we can start.
Oh, actually, okay. Yeah, let's go ahead. So actually, I'm very I'm very happy to be invited to this C5+1 Youth Council talk. I have the honor to talk a bit about what is trade facilitation and what we are doing in the field of trade facilitation in Central Asia. Before I maybe just shortly. I'm not sure if every one of you is aware what GIZ is doing. And so basically GIZ is the German development, is implementing the German development policy and is working on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. And we are implementing development projects all over the world and trying to improve the living conditions of the population and fostering sustainable growth. Actually, Central Asia and trade facilitation in Central Asia. So let me shortly elaborate what trade facilitation actually is about. Actually, you might be aware that there are a lot of different border agencies working at the borders between two countries, and all of them are somehow there's a special task. So, for example, we have the border guards checking your passport. We also have the customs services, which somehow are checking goods and also somehow generating revenues from certain like custom fees or other sort of fees. We have the border agencies on phytosanitary inspection and veterinary inspection, checking the goods coming to a country in order to prevent diseases or pests. And all these agencies are somehow sought to protect countries from harm. On the other hand, these border agencies are also relevant when it comes to facilitating trade and making legitimate trade possible, and on a very somehow to facilitate processes. What exactly am I talking about? So if you want to protect your country from diseases, from pests, or from trafficking of drugs, smuggling, and so on and so forth, basically, if you want to achieve 100% security, you have to check 100% of the trucks. But this will somehow lead to a situation where you spend a lot of time and efforts, and you do harm to a lot of traders who just legitimately doing trade without doing any harms to the country. So it's key to decide what is actually legitimate trade, and you want to get these drivers cross the border in a short time without any difficulties. And what are the trucks which deserve inspection? Yeah, where there's really a risk. And actually, what we are trying as GIZ in our project is we try to support our partner countries in order to train border agencies in setting up their risk management system and become better and better in detecting what are the trucks that needs to be inspected and what are the trucks that can just pass. This is one of the important topics of trade facilitation, but it's not the only one. So as I've mentioned before, there are several border agencies at the border checkpoint. And at the moment, in some of the countries, we see the situation that if a truck enters the border checkpoint, it's not facing only one inspection, but several inspections, because all the border agencies are somehow doing their job carefully, opening the truck, checking for the items which are relevant to themselves, and then somehow giving approval, writing invoices, so that the truck driver has to get several invoices, has to pay several invoices. And at the same time, these border agencies are not always very well coordinated in a way that, for example, the opening hours of the different offices may differ. That leads to a situation that the truck drivers enter the border and cannot really fastly proceed and get all the inspections done. So trade facilitation is also about cooperation of border agencies, setting up systems where data might be exchanged between the border agencies, maybe also joint inspection at border checkpoints, and somehow to set up the processes or the organization infrastructure at the border checkpoint in a way that it's useful and that it facilitates trade. This is now what we discussed so far is only situation at one border checkpoint on one side of the border. But what happens if we now look, for example, to the other side of the border? Why not to share data and on traders information we have on the vehicles, as well as on the persons and the companies doing the trade? Why not to share this among the countries, so that not all the documents have to hand it in twice? So this is then we come to a topic of regional cooperation, which is also part of this trade facilitation, a global agenda on trade facilitation. One more topic is about policy making. Policy making on trade facilitation should be set up not only on trade facilitation, it's true for all the other development topics as well, but it's set up in a way that the target group should be involved into the policy making. That means concretely to involve like traders or transportation companies into policy-making process. And where is this done? So actually there are, every country that is a member of the World Trade Organization should have national trade facilitation committees. This is basically a public-private forum where legal needs for legal assessment are discussed, on where truck drivers or where the transportation companies can also address their needs and explain what is the situation they are facing at the borders and what kind of regulations are needed. So, for example, access to information. If it's so difficult to understand where to go, to which inspection first, where to pay the invoices, no lines are displayed at the border checkpoints. This is a situation which can be easily solved, and truck drivers, transportation companies, traders are the one who can address this issue during the trade facilitation in the trade facilitation committees. So one more remark on trade facilitation to explain why it's so important to go for a regional approach in trade facilitation. Actually, trade is per se a topic which where more than one country is involved. So it perfectly makes sense also when you discuss a trade facilitation agenda to discuss it with the neighboring countries. And just give me one example why this is so important. When we, for example, think about the resilience of roads, yeah. So what is, according to the law, how heavy should trucks be that they're allowed to go on the roads in a specific country? If these laws are not harmonized in a way, then it comes to the situation that in one country, trucks can be loaded until a certain amount of tons, where in the neighboring country, the amount differs, which leads to the situation that trucks has to be loaded and unloaded and loaded at the border checkpoints, which is very costly and time consuming. This can be easily changed just in somehow harmonizing this kind of regulation among or between in both of the countries. So therefore, we as GIZ are also very much supporting regional exchange of these national trade facilitation committees and trying to get all of them on one table to discuss how they can somehow work together in order to facilitate trade in the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felicitas. And now I would like to welcome Aikan Suranaeva.
Thank you, Paul. I would just like to demonstrate the viewers some of the research in terms of the trade facilitation, especially to Central Asia. And one of the main topics about the export and import flows between Central Asian countries and one of other key partners of it. So as you can see, like the amount of any export and import flow, which is shown in the slide, they differ really much in terms of if we compare Kyrgyzstan's export and import procedures and flows with countries from the Central Asia region as Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. As you can see, they are less than 5 or 10 or 15 persons, while the Chinese and Russians ones are like the prioritizing and the biggest one. We can skip to the another one as well, to the another slide. The same amount, as you can see, also goes for Kazakhstan, and as you can see as well, the export and import flows are also more prioritizing and much more in terms of the China and Russia rather than the Central Asian countries. And the same goes for the next country. Can we skip for another slide? Thank you. And as you can see, the same amount, especially in terms of export, goes to Tajikistan, between China and Republic of China and Russia Federation. And lastly, with Uzbekistan. Can we skip? Yes, thank you. And as you can see here, even though Uzbekistan has kind of similar moments with the like the other neighboring countries of Central Asia, like that it has more export and import flows with China and Russia rather with other Central Asian countries. And can we go for the slide uh, number five, like two previous ones? Thank you. And there are some key moments of this potential research that when you're trying to discover like the full data about the export and import flows between Central Asian countries, you can just notice that there are not so much fully available data from some of the Central Asian countries, and it depends on where you're looking for and about the openness of the information. That nextly we can see that not all many countries like showing like the regular or most recent data about the export and import flows. And the most important part for me was like that some Central Asian countries also even weren't showing the data and amount of export and import between other Central Asian countries, because mostly even if they show the information and data about they trade procedures with other countries, they can sometimes even not include Central Asian countries, because mostly they try to show the export-import flows with the some known named key partners, and they might sometimes may not be even the Central Asian countries as well. It can be Russia, it can be China, it can be another country which is not in the region, and this is one of the, by the way, the key points of the trade facilitation in Central Asia, to showing and try to facilitate the trade in the region of Central Asia, because ironically, sometimes, as you can see from the research as well and from the reality, Central Asian countries mostly try to and just tend to have more relationship with countries from outside the region, and not having so much, even though they have the potential to cooperate with each other as well as with the neighboring countries, because we are from these countries are from one region as well. So yes, this was basically the main point that I would like to highlight. Yes, and I'm done with this. So thank you for giving the word as well.
Yeah, maybe I can comment if you allow, Paul.
Yeah,
So
sure.
actually,
It's great if we have a discussion.
yeah,
with
great.
yourself.
Yeah, so actually, Aikan, you are absolutely right. So the datas are not really fully available. Yeah. However, what we can say is that it is less than 10% of the data of the trade of Central Asian countries that is done between the Central Asian countries. And this is a problem indeed. As you said, there is a potential to have more trade. And let me give you one example why it's so important to facilitate the trade within Central Asia, because actually it will strengthen Central Asia as a region, also from the economic side. So when we, for example, think about value chains, to set up a value chains and to have some more of their value added in the region. So, for example, if we produce nuts in walnut, for example, in Kyrgyzstan, we could also think about where are these nuts processed and in which way. And at the moment, it's so that Uzbekistan processes these nuts and does the packaging and send it to Turkey. So somehow here we have an example where two Central Asian countries are already involved in one of the value chains. But there could be much, much more of these examples. And also it's always of advantage for the local economies if they have as much as possible of the processing and value added in the region. And together, I think countries can be much stronger and somehow identify what are these value chains and that can be developed. And so in the end, it will both of parties, both countries will profit from it.
Thank you very much, Felicitas. And before we continue the discussion of the topic, I would like to share short information about C5+1 Youth Council. So the Youth Council is a diverse group of Central Asian youth from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. Every year, new YC members from Central Asian countries and Afghanistan are selected among students representing local universities in Kyrgyzstan based on open competition, which includes application review and interviews, gender balance, diversity, and genuine interest in YC objectives. Currently, the C5+1 Youth Council consists of 73 YC alumni and 49 YC members. The YC reinforces the U.S. Central Asia C5+1 joint goals of the country in violent extremism, Central Asia business competitiveness, the C5+1 Transport Corridor Development Component, the C5+1 Power the Future project, and the C5+1 supporting national and regional adaptation plan. So my question to Felicitas and Aikan is, how do you think how international organizations or individuals can contribute in trade facilitation in its development?
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul, for raising this question. So actually, first of all, I think it's not, how to say, it's not the role of international organizations or of individuals to somehow solve this issue and facilitate the trade within Central Asia. But basically, first of all, I would say it is the task of the Central Asian countries themselves, of the governments themselves. And of course, international organizations and the international community are helping and supporting on this. For us as GIZ, it's always extremely important to very, very closely cooperate with our partners, so the Ministry of Trade, the Ministry of Economy, or the Customs Services, or the other Food Safety Committee. So in all the countries, we have slightly different structures, but also the National Trade Facilitation Committees, because what we would like to do, we want to be partners which are very, very close to our partners, to understand their needs and to support with international expertise, with so to a smaller point, to a smaller part with infrastructure. Like, for example, we are also giving some financing of software development in order to support the digitalization efforts of our partners, of our partner countries. And we are facilitating this regional exchange. We are facilitating exchange among the border agencies. And I think by this we are already helping the partners. So this networking aspect, soft component capacity development to different border agencies and policy making bodies, and also some part of hard components. And at the same time, we always, so due to COVID pandemic, it is not so easy now, but what we also do is we are somehow supporting our partners on study tours. So going to other countries and see how they are cooperating at the borders, or what kind of, how they are organizing the work of the National Trade Facilitation Committees. So we are sending our partners to go there physically, to meet with their peers in other countries, and to learn from each other. But due to the pandemic and travel restrictions, this is again not so easy. Also here we go digital, and we are at the moment in our project Trade Facilitation Central Asia are preparing 2 study tours, one to Georgia and one to Latvia, which will be fully digital. And so partners can then visit the border checkpoints there, ask questions to the people working at the border checkpoint. And we are very excited how this will work out. So basically, this is what we are working on at the moment. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And Aikan, how do you think the COVID influenced trade facilitation? It was interesting to hear it from Felicitas, but I believe our audience would also like to hear your opinion as well.
Yes, just to add to Felicitas' part about the virtual study tours and other options which we are trying to implement during the COVID-19 restrictions and regulations. Uh, Actually, we just know we have seen like the impacts of pandemic in different areas as well as the trade. And as you might know, that the borders were also temporarily closed of other countries as well. And but like as you can see, like even during the pandemic, we could manage to work. And were just several points that we could find out and highlight after the emergence of the COVID outbreak. So uh, as you can see, like we can assume that COVID-19 became like the uh, 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 kind of an example for like new challenge for any workers or any sphere when you need to prepare for unexpected emergent situations and need to conduct and implement new measures in order to proceed the work, and not everything like to stop. And COVID is also became seen as like the problem which need to be prevented, or at least to be prepared for this once, as it was like for other emergent situations, as like the um, pandemics and other challenges as well. There were also we can also understand that the people who work at border crossing points and also regulate the trade procedures are the ones who also have to contact many people and to prevent like the spread of the COVID-19, and therefore also countries also trying also implementing uh, new 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 things, as we can call them, is in order to for the digitalization of the some of the tools, some of the procedures, in order to avoid any kind of like prevention of the contacts, physical contact, and etc. So these were the basically the main points. As you can, as you have heard from Felicitas as well, that some of the even regular stuff that we have been doing offline, we are also implementing and figuring out the new ways how we can manage to do to implement our activities, but still be in the during also still be even during the pandemic as well. You don't have to anything to add, Felicitas?
Yeah, so actually no, you are totally right. Yeah, so actually what we experienced was, first of all, when the COVID pandemic started, was first of all a drop back in the situation of that trade was not facilitated anymore, but borders closed, countries were closing up, export bans were set up like for masks or medical equipment or even food. Yeah, there were export bans for food at the beginning of the pandemic. And also there are still new visa regimes are still in place, for example, for Kazakhstan. At the moment, for me as European citizens, it's not possible to enter to Kazakhstan without a visa. And also what we see now is the PCR tests that are needed in order to cross border. These are also somehow like barriers to trade. And here again, we have to check if the solutions that are offered, if they are reasonable, or if it can be like how to make it as easy as possible, and at the same time still be protect. So it's basically to stop the disease. So we have again to find the right balance. And as said before from Aikan, so truck drivers are somehow among the most vulnerable group because they are moving, they have a lot of contact when they are giving their paper to the border guards, again giving paper to another person. There are a lot of contacts, and actually due to the digitalization and exchange of data in a digital way, we are reducing this physical context, which in the end also has a positive effect on their health, on the health risks.
and reducing like the amount of time that people spend during the crossing the borders and eventually like facilitating the trade itself, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's time to start the Q&A session with the viewers. So the first question is from IPD, and she's asking, are there any challenges Central Asia is currently facing in implementing trade facilitation?
Yeah, actually, so I would, if I may, I will start answering. So actually, there are several. Yeah. So first of all, in order to check out what is meant with trade facilitation and what topics are involved here, a good source is the webpage of the World Trade Organization and the OECD indicator on trade facilitation. And if you study these indicators and look more in detail, you will see that they are covering all the topics which I mentioned at the beginning in my opening statement. So we have the challenges of risk management, we have challenges of border agency cooperation, we have the challenge of access to information to the private sector, we have the challenge of cooperation of border agencies at one side of the border, but also among each other. The digitalization, we have one challenge we are working on is pre-arrival information, so that all the documents can be handed in even before the truck approaches the border, and how to make this technically feasible. We are also working on the transit topic. So a lot of transportation goes through different countries, and it's not the final destination. So it would make sense somehow to get the trucks past the country without stopping it just until the final destination is achieved. And also, therefore, the countries among each other need to have trust and functioning systems, like a guarantee system, like the International Road Union, for example, is providing. So actually, there are several challenges and several topics. But if you ask me what is the main challenge at the moment for trade facilitation, I would say it's getting the border agencies digitalized. So digitalization is the key topic. Setting up their hardware infrastructure, setting up their software, making data exchange possible, and also the access to information, make it accessible for the private sector. So everything is basically on getting the processes digital.
Thank you very much, Felicitas. Aikan, do you have something to add?
Oh, I would just like to just clarify, add to the words of Felicitas that the challenge might be like the exchange of information, as we mentioned before about the pre-arrival of information, that two sides would know in advance the needed information in order to improve and fasten the process of the trade and etc. And maybe like improve the structures of and reducing the administrative and technical barriers for trade, like reducing some processes which takes too much time, or maybe it can be like implemented just in order to fasten the trade, and as well as the existing information also comes to this one. So yes, thank you, and thank you for this question.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question is from Oybek. And what do you think is the place of the trade the Central Asia countries are lacking on?
Yeah, thank you for this. Thank you for this question. So I think it's a little bit a tricky one. What I would say that it's all it's also a lot about trust. A lot about trust among the countries to somehow trust is the basis for cooperation. And what we are observing is that there are, for example, long queues at the border between Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. Although both of the countries are part of the Eurasian Union, so where it's not as it's one economic region, there should be hardly any any barriers. But still, we see that in fact there are very, very long queues at the borders, and that the Kazakh borders are somehow, or the Kazakh authorities somehow are only very slowly allowing the trucks to enter the countries. And so actually, although we have the same economic union, and also all of the countries without Uzbekistan at the moment, who is in the assessing status, are members of the World Trade Organization, but still the cooperation is slowly starting, which is of. But to be honest, I'm very optimistic and positive about it, because I see that also due to our efforts in the international community, making all these international conferences and bringing partners together, we see that people start talking with each other, exchanging on the content of the trade facilitation agenda. So I'm quite optimistic that we will come to progress, and that Central Asian countries will understand that they are more stronger when they somehow cooperate. So I'm quite positive and optimistic about it. But what I see at the moment is that, the level of cooperation is still very low. And this is maybe the obstacle Central Asian countries are facing.
Okay, thank you very much, Felicitas. And I believe we don't have any more questions from the audience. So before we end the event, I would like to make one more remark. So in 2016, with the U.S. Embassy and the Kyrgyz Republic collaboration, the American University of Central Asia has created a dynamic C5+1 Youth Council that brings together Central Asian youth and with diverse backgrounds, leadership skills, and mindsets for the positive change in 2016. And since January 2021, C5+1 Youth Council has been administered by the American Councils for International Education in Kyrgyzstan. The Youth Council is a diverse group of Central Asian youth from Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. And currently, the C5+1 Youth Council network consists of 73 YC alumni and 49 YC members. We actually have one more question from IPD, and she's asking, how has trade facilitation helped particularly businesses in Central Asia to develop and reach results?
I would just say that trade facilitation also includes the business representatives as well, and they also include their opinions in terms of the helping in facilitating the trade. And one of the objectives might be that it's particular GIZ also helps to provide the technical assistance in order to help the representatives of government, and just make a discussion between the business representatives in Central Asia, and giving kind of a platform for discussing the issues they are facing, how can they manage that, and especially helping to make provided the assistance in order to help to make border crossing more transparent, more efficient, and more faster as well. So I guess that's the main points for business representatives for their results in terms of trade facilitation.
Yeah, thank you. I can also add something, to what you've just said. So when you think, for example, of businesses in agriculture and production of fruits, of vegetables, of highly perishable goods, and you would like to export them to a neighboring country or even a farther destination like Russia or the European market. And trade facilitation helps you somehow to get the truck and your goods as fast as possible to the final destination. You can imagine if you have perishable goods like melons or apricots or tomatoes in your truck, and you have to stand in a long queue at each of the border checkpoints without cooling facilities. Your production of the year will be spoiled before it reaches the final destination. So this example shows how relevant trade facilitation actually is for the development of businesses in Central Asia.
Okay, thank you very much, Felicitas and Aikan. And I think on that note, we can end the event today. Thank you very much one more time for this wonderful session, Felicitas and Aikan, and thank you very much for your contribution. I'm really glad that we worked together, and I hope for the productive cooperation in the future as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Aikan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Goodbye and have a good rest of the day. See you on our next sessions. And please don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. The links to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn pages are on the comment section, so please check it out. Okay, have a good rest of the day and goodbye. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.